following takes place between 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. Events occur in real time.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome back to FBC Radio Live. That's right. It's November the 4th, and actually, it just popped into my mind a little bit of an anniversary. It was 17 years ago. No, 14 years ago. I apologize. My math is not my strongest suit. 14 years ago, Patriots, Colts in Indianapolis, undefeated, both of them, 2007. I was at that game, John. It was actually a lot of fun. Yeah, I flew out to Indianapolis. I bought my tickets. I was very fortunate, actually. I bought my tickets right before the Patriots traded for Randy Moss. Now, this was a while, again, 2007. So when the schedule came out and, when ticket availability was there, I don't know if the date was actually announced yet, but I know that ticket availability was there, and I was fortunate enough to buy my tickets before the Patriots acquired Randy Moss. Therefore, it was far cheaper than what it ultimately was. But no, that was a great experience, and just saying the date November 4th brought that back into my memory. Because for some reason I remember those odd things. But yeah, it was a good time. When's the last time you traveled to a football NFL event?
Oh Lord! Oh my God! It has to go back. I mean, this is going to sound kind
Were
of silly.
airplanes around, or?
No. It was covered wagon.
Yes.
That I covered the
Right.
Packers with Lombardi back in 1963. That was the last time I traveled. Actually, I've never really. I'm not a traveler by nature. I wish I was, but I'm kind of like love being home and basically in this area. I wish I was more of a traveler. I actually went to, in terms of a Patriots game, to the Patriots against this is how long ago it was, the Baltimore Colts.
Oh, wow.
It was kicking off the 1982 season. The Patriots had come off, I believe, 1-15 the year before, and they ended up drafting Kenny Stimms with the first pick, and Ron Myers, the new head coach of the Patriots. So I went down day of game and came back that night, sat in the press box. At the time, I was working for Time Warner Cable, so I had full access to the Patriots. They were great to me. Tom Hoffman was the public relations director, one of the best I ever dealt with. He was fantastic. I know I flew down with Kevin Mannix, who covered the Patriots for the Boston Herald back in the day, and the Patriots won that game. And I really became real friendly with Ron Meyer. He was awesome to deal with. I mean, he was just the friendliest guy. He was, probably full of it. I mean, he almost felt like J.R. Ewing. He had that Texas twang and all that fun stuff. Always well dressed with a tan, and he kind of turned the team around though. I mean, they got fired in '84, and then the next year they went to the Super Bowl with Ray Berry. That's the last time I traveled to an away game. I mean, I've basically always covered the home games, throughout the '80s and so forth. But that was the only time I traveled. The last time I traveled to a game. So I have no interesting stories other than I saw Eichel Schleister, who was my favorite college player at Ohio State, who turned out to be less than a good guy.
Yeah.
He
being kind.
He was back up that day. Yeah, that is being kind. He backed up the other quarterback for the Colts who was drafted the same year. Mike Pagel was drafted later in that draft. They drafted two quarterbacks, I think, in the first 3 rounds, and Pagel actually beat him out to be the starting quarterback. So I was going to go down and meet Art Schleister, but I think he was on the phone placing bets on the 425 game, so I didn't get access to him. But the Patriots won that game, and I think that year they went 5-4. That was a strike-shortened season. They lost to, I think, the Dolphins in the playoffs. But it was fun to go to a road game.
There is a certain, I've been to plenty of Patriots games at Gillette and even at the old Foxborough Stadium. Yes, my first handful of games in my life were sitting on in that professional stadium that was actually a high school stadium. So that's what it was. It was just a high school stadium masquerading as a pro stadium, and it was awful in hindsight. But going to games in both those stadiums in Foxborough is obviously there's being able to see the evolution of that area over the last 25 years has been pretty remarkable. But in addition to that Colts game, I've obviously had a chance to go to 2 games down here in Miami when I was living here. So I spent a little bit of time down here in 2006. And I went to I went to a Patriots Dolphins game, and to this day, it was probably the worst game I've ever seen of the Patriots Brady era, and it was a 21-0 loss where
I remember that.
the only good play that they somewhat executed ended up getting called back because the double pass ended up being a double forward pass. Because
Okay.
so it was an ugly game. It was just I mean, it was one of those games where you just sit there and say, well, it was in Miami, whatever. The other Miami game that I went to, John, you'll remember this one as well, was the Steven Jackson game.
Mhm.
Very, very close to being one of the worst games in Patriots in that 20-year run for the Patriots, because for whatever reason they just felt the need to just force feed Steven Jackson the ball. This was like the last game of the season. They ended up losing this game, one of the last two games of the season. I can't remember. They ended up losing this game. They lost seeding. They lost the bye week, and it didn't go well for them. 2015. Oh yeah, so 2015 they ended up going to Denver to play the AFC Championship game, and they lost because
Right. That year they started 10-0. I
yeah,
remember they started 10-0.
and then
Edelman got hurt,
Dion
and then
Lewis
they
got
went
hurt
2 and
too.
4 down. Yeah, Dion Lewis,
Yeah.
Edelman got hurt. They went 2 and 4 down the stretch. I remember that game. I think
Yeah.
Brady threw 4 or 5 passes in the first half. I'm like, you've got the greatest
Yeah,
quarterback
I
in league
was-
history.
I was so frustrated.
Making him throw 4 passes. Yeah, I mean, especially you as a Brady guy. I mean, you drive halfway across the state to go see your guy, and he throws 4 passes.
Well,
in the first half. I remember that was a frustrating, weird game.
I made a vow that day never to go back to Miami to watch a Patriots game. And I
Well, they
haven't
never
been.
won when you went there. It
was bad. It was bad.
You're a Jonah.
Yeah.
In Italian, that's what we call it, a Jonah. Look, you jinxed my guy and my team yesterday.
I did.
saying
Okay, all right.
There's no question that Green Bay is going to beat the Chiefs on Sunday. I'm like, well, let's get through the game, and then 15 minutes after we went off air, the biggest story of the year dropped right in our laps.
Well, again, this also takes into account that I assumed based on his words and everything he said that Aaron Rodgers was vaccinated, and much like you kind of just assume or not assume, but you don't project injuries. I didn't project this to happen, and what do you know? As soon as we got off the air, actually, it might have happened during our little post-show powwow that we usually have.
Right.
And the news broke that, well, Aaron Rodgers is out for at least 10 days because, well, he's not vaccinated and he tested positive. So, first of all, I don't, I'm not, I don't get joy out of, I don't get joy out of kind of harping on things like this.
Mhm.
This was clearly very, very, we know what the guidelines are. We know what the rules are. We know
Mhm.
what's supposed to happen. Whether you like it or not, it is what it is. And it's whether it's flawed or not. And I agree that there are a lot of things in this mask up world and COVID world that we have that are head scratching, contradictory. I get that, I understand that, but the point of it all is the motivation behind this stuff isn't to hurt people. I think it's, whether, the effectiveness, how great it works, how much it works, maybe that's up for interpretation. I don't know. I don't have enough background in the science and everything like that. I'm perfectly okay admitting that. But the rules are the rules, and by the looks of it, it looks like not only did Aaron Rodgers mislead the public and the media, but he showed a pretty blatant disregard for the
Mhm.
rules in a
Without
very
question.
selfish
Mhm.
way. And I think I mean, obviously, I look, I think at the end of the day, I know they're looking into the whole situation, everything like that. I don't know what the exact details, conversations had been between him and the NFL, because there was some uh, alternative medication or treatment that he went through. I don't know what.
Homeopathic
Yeah,
treatment, whatever it may be, maybe eating clay
yeah.
the
Who
way
knows?
his fiancee eats clay, Shailene Woodley, who seems to make Alex Guerrero look normal. I mean,
Yeah,
if you read about her, I mean, obviously we've kidded that Aaron Rodgers probably lives out of a van, and you know what? I kind of get the feeling he doesn't shower. You know, there's the Hollywood sect now that doesn't shower, let the hair down, don't shave. You know, kind of go hipster. He's got the ukulele and all of that fun stuff. But here's the thing that really pissed me off about all of this: he lied.
Yeah,
that's the best way to describe it. He was deceitful.
I think it's the only way to describe it.
It's the only way to describe it. He's conniving. I mean, I remember, I think we talked about this in August. He was asked, "Are you vaccinated?" And you can kind of tell when someone's lying when they don't really look you in the eye, because he's usually a look in the eye type of guy. He's not afraid to voice his opinion on everything, including, you know, the stupidity in his mind that the NFL forced his home teams into hotels the night before the game, and that caused his back to cramp up 2 weeks ago. Yeah, he came out with that one. So he kind of looked the other way and says, "Yeah, I'm immunized," which isn't vaccinated. And again, people that cover the Packers, and again, full disclosure, everyone knows I'm the biggest Aaron Rodgers guy. I'm probably the biggest Aaron Rodgers guy in the Eastern Time Zone. But he lied to everyone, and he's in a market that really the people that cover the Packers are truly fanboys, right? I mean, that's what you have in Green Bay. There's no one that's going to call him out on that. Now, if I'm a member of the media in Green Bay or Milwaukee or wherever it's covered, I'm pissed because he's not vaccinated. He's now tested positive. He was appearing at press conferences maskless, which is in complete violation of the mandate. He was supposed to do the press conferences either via Zoom or wearing a mask. He did neither. So if I'm a member of the press, and go, "Thanks, Aaron. If I got sick because of you, you know, where does that leave me?" You know, and I would be pissed at that. If I'm a teammate, I'm pissed. I'm a wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers, and I don't run the right route, or I drop the ball, and he glares at me and calls me out. You know what?
Yeah.
You lied to me. If I'm an offensive lineman and I get called out because I missed a blocking assignment and Aaron gets sacked, you know what? Bleep you. You don't care about me. Why should I care about you? So look, I am ready, willing, and able to always criticize my favorite guys, Aaron Rodgers and LeBron James. It's almost as if I'm not going to go this far and say they're like my sons, but I think you should criticize those that you like a lot because you're disappointed in them. Look, is he going to get suspended? If he gets suspended, I'm not going to really put up any kind of complaint because this is just so arrogant on his part. And he's supposed to be this progressive guy, and he is. I think of all the quarterbacks, he's probably the most progressive, whatever the hell that means. But I've told you this before. People on the far right have a problem with the vaccination. People on the far left also have a problem with the vaccination. They sometimes meet on certain issues. And on this one, the extremes do meet at times. And he thinks he has all the answers, and he was going to, you know, give himself the antibodies to protect him against this. And even said in that press conference, well, you know, I know guys that are vaccinated that have contracted COVID. Yeah, that happens.
Yeah.
It's a vaccine. It's not a cure. You're supposed to be a smart guy. You went to Cal, you host Jeopardy. You know, you got a wise ass answer for everything. You know everything. I'm so freaking disappointed in this because it just looks foolish. It just looks like if there was one guy in the league that was going to, if you said name, you know, let's use Jeopardy as an example here. This NFL quarterback, you know, lied about being vaccinated, was tested positive for COVID, missed one game, may miss two. Who is it? I would guess it's Aaron Rodgers because he has that type of personality. Well, he has to be smarter than everyone, and he'll lie. Like, I wouldn't think Tom Brady would do that. Tom Brady's smart enough and has, you know, people in his family that are medical community that said, you know, get vaccinated.
Well, he has two sisters that are nurses, and
exactly.
So,
and
we know Aaron Rodgers.
So, he could have two brothers that are doctors, which I don't think they are. We've seen one of them on The Bachelor. So they could have, you know, I believe, and I believe his father was a chiropractor, which I guess is a doctor. Like if he was still talking to his dad, maybe he could say, "Hey, Dad, should I get vaccinated?" But that's
you know what they call a doctor who fails out of medical school?
A podiatrist,
a dentist, but they also call them chiropractors too.
Like I did technically die at the dental office
right.
Ago. So that I can attest to that.
Did it happen to be on Easter that you came back? Because then I'd have some more questions. Because I mean, I hold you in quite high regard, John, despite some of the things I say on this show. But that would be even a little bit higher than I even imagined. But look, if you were going to say before the season, and ignore the whole lying part, because again, I think that would be totally against say Brady's nature. Even though again, people sit there and bring up Deflategate, and I'll ask you, okay, when did he lie? So, but if you were going to tell me that one of these two quarterbacks was going to seek alternative means in which to fight COVID, and you listed Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady, I would say, oh, easily Tom Brady. You know what I mean? Like,
That's
to
what
me,
most people would think
yeah,
of Alex
exactly,
Guerrero.
exactly. Like, oh, okay,
Rodgers
like,
has his own Alex Guerrero apparently, and his
yeah,
fiance. That's even a closer connection. And Shailene Woodley. I mean, have you read about her?
yeah,
She makes her own soap. She makes her own medication. She gets spring water wherever she is in the world. All the things that the average person can do. That has plenty of time to do all of this
yeah,
stuff. I mean, talk about unrelatable a-holes. I mean, I'm just miffed. I'm
yeah.
miffed. I'm pissed.
Mhm.
I was looking forward to Sunday's game.
Me too.
It looked like it was going to be this fun game. I'm sure Fox is thrilled with this because this was probably going to be the highest rated game of the year. But let's even put that aside. I mean, if they lose the number one seed because of this, who really cares? If I'm, again, a teammate of his or a member of the media or anybody in that building, I'm pissed because this guy put your health in peril because of his nonsense.
Well, we talk a lot about, we're not shy about who we think, are the best two quarterbacks in the league. We talk about how similar they are, and there's a lot of similarities. But then there's certain differences that are almost more impactful. And again, this isn't. We're intersecting actual gameplay versus real life situation here, but there are some parallels between the two because back, before, again, this has some to do with the influence around each of them. Back, when this was a hot button issue, Brady said, he got it because at the end of the day, it was, obviously, good health wise, but it was also important for him to make sure he was available for the team, and that was the best way to do it. And Tampa became, even with some folks that were very hesitant, like Leonard Fournette, they became a team that was 100% vaccinated, and we've seen minimal issues with Tampa in that sense, and everyone seems to have fallen in line. Again, there's a lot of influence with each individual. In a micro football sense, Tom Brady had a lot of influence on those guys that may or may not have had hesitations or reservations about getting the vaccine. That translates into some of the things that he's done. We've talked about it before. Name one person. I'm still waiting for someone, just anyone, to point out one former teammate that has ever said anything slightly negative about Tom Brady. And you think, oh, that you're being a little hyperbolic. No, I'm serious. Like, I've scoured the internet. I've scoured interviews. Like, I mean, Ted Johnson hates Bill Belichick. Wouldn't say a bad word about Tom Brady. There's play. Asante Samuel hates Bill Belichick, loves Tom Brady. Like, so, again, there's and again, there's not many. It's not like there's a long list, like long line waiting to file complaints, against Aaron Rodgers, but there's enough, and there's enough people out there, former teammates, that have, whether it's a little bit exaggerated or not, have a very similar opinion or feeling about the guy. And that, when it comes to comparing the two, it seems like such a small difference, but it makes such a huge difference. And it plays out right here when we have this situation that affects not only football directly, but also just life. And to your point, and I think it's a great point, like, does it all of a sudden make, some of his teammates like Devontae Adams or maybe, one of his, like, was it Alan Lazard? I don't think is vaccinated either. Are they going to all of a sudden do a 180 on him? No, but you never know what's going to happen down the road. Like you said, what happens the next time Aaron Rodgers starts lecturing them about something on the football field?
Right.
And all of a sudden, whether it's a slight thought, a big thought, or whatever, all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, why should I listen to you? The second that happens, you're not getting that back. And look, there's a lot of other factors that go into this. Depending on what the Packers organization knew, coaching staff, front office, all that stuff, how they went about this, because it seems like they were either very complicit in this or they were just naive, like completely
They knew.
oblivious to
They knew he
everything.
wasn't vaccinated.
Yeah.
The league knew he wasn't vaccinated because he appealed to the league to be considered similar to vaccinated because of his homeopathic.
Which
And
is
they said no.
absurd. Which is absurd to
Yeah.
again. That's
Yeah.
part of the arrogance thing. It's like, okay, I found a way. It's kind of like the whole
I
Trump
found
thing.
the
Like
cure.
I found the way.
Yeah.
Um,
I know more than you.
Yeah.
I know more than Anthony Fauci and the CDC, so I'm smarter than those guys. Yeah, so I've got all the answers. And look, even if you're an offensive lineman, like Lucas Patrick, I think was called out last week for missing a blocking assignment. He's like, dude, I'm giving you everything I've got. I'm putting my life and limbs out here to protect you, and you're not protecting me because if we have close contact and I get this thing, and maybe I don't die, but we've seen plenty of people that it's impacted their lives for a long period of time. They don't recover from it properly. They have
Eduardo Rodriguez for the Red Sox.
Exactly.
Bedridden for a while.
Yeah. So so all of that, like we railed against, Cole Beasley and Ryan Tannehill and Kirk Cousins.
Cam Newton.
I had more respect. Cam Newton, all those guys. I had more respect for them because they were out front with it and said, I'm not getting the vaccination. But then they followed protocol, right? Like you see Cole Beasley at press conferences, he does them either via Zoom or wearing a mask.
Well, go back to Cam. Go back to Cam Newton's time with the Patriots, and he followed protocols. I mean, how many times we saw the image of him on Zoom with a mask on? I mean, that was what he did. And
so I respect them more. I mean, I think they're foolish, but I can respect them. At least they're being transparent that they're not vaccinated. He's trying to have it both ways by throwing this. He danced around it almost very lawyerly, like I'm immunized. Well, is everyone going to run and find out what the difference is between immunized, vaccinated, inoculated? Like, where are we here? So, and again, he's probably in the best market to get away from that because most, if not all, the people that cover the Packers are fanboys. I think most people that cover teams are that. The days of having, the hard-nosed reporters coming in and attacking the team, it just doesn't exist anymore because it's just take your access away. I mean, the team can put forth whatever they want. So the Packers knew about this. Obviously, the league knew about this. There's going to be a fine, which is nothing. Who cares if these teams are worth billions of dollars? I mean, what the hell does a $500 million fine mean? $500,000 fine or a draft pick?
I think it's
suspended. Would he be suspended? And you know what? I wouldn't push back against it.
Could he be? Yes, I think again a lot of it has to do with what happens as they look into the situation. I know the NFL's looking into how this all came about, or what complicity the team had, all that stuff. But look, I hate to again, no matter what, I can't remember what I was watching. I just watched it recently, but someone was talking about how like. It was on it was on the most recent recording of the eye test for two. We were talking with author Seth Wickersham, I'm a big fan, of course. And it was the point was brought up that like even if you were talking about Peyton Manning, ultimately you ended up talking about Tom Brady, and in this sense, it's going to do the same thing. So like, look, Tom Brady got suspended and his reputation dragged through the public for a quote unquote general knowledge of a possible scheme, which it was a huge stretch because again, if you've dived into the actual details of the report and everything like that, you'd realize that even that is almost just comical to come to that conclusion. So Tom Brady got suspended, dragged through the mud, the face of the NFL, and suspended 4 games for violating, ultimately what the NFL described as violating the integrity of the shield. Well, what is this if not that?
He deserves. If they're going to suspend him, I'm again biggest Aaron Rodgers guy for now. This is really starting to piss me off because I like guys. I like athletes more than just their exploits on the field or on the court. I like his personality for the most part. I like that he's kind of quirky.
This is where the flaws of it come into play, though.
Right, exactly. Where now that he thinks he's the smartest guy in the room, He knows more than everyone else, and even with something like this, rather than just like Brady realized, well, this is going to help the team, so let's all get vaccinated. I mean, yeah, Lazard's not vaccinated. And Rodgers in that press conference came out and goes, well, everyone has their own opinion, and I'm not going to push back against those guys. You're one of those guys. You weren't vaccinated. Like, what the hell are you talking about? You're living in an alternative universe.
Yeah, he clearly did not want this to be public. The efforts that he took to conceal this, and the idea that he could somehow keep this act going the entire season is just beyond me. It's like, what happens? Like, you knew eventually. Well, maybe again, maybe he felt that he was somewhat immune to all this. So, hey, well, I'm not going to get it, so it's never going to come up. Well, guess what? You got it. It's week 8, and you're in. And this is, and this is exactly if I was a Packers fan, and I know they're blindly loyal and everything like that. Look, I mean, Patriots fans were that to Tom Brady as well.
Oh yeah,
but all of a sudden, his actions are negatively impacting the success and failures of the team. Now, Jordan Love could go out there and have the game of his life, and all of a sudden, I think Packers fans might ease up a little bit and be like, wait a minute. Look, we know that there's already, prior to all this, there's a very slim chance that Aaron Rodgers is back with the Packers next year anyways. I think some of this situation, basically, I know some Packers fans have soured a little bit on Brett Favre after that whole fiasco. They do have the tendency to kind of, turn their nose if they do things that affect the Packers. And this is affecting the Packers because, think about it. Okay, we'll take the real world situation out of this. Aaron Rodgers did something that is going to cause him to miss games for the Packers. The Packers are currently in a very tight race for the only wild card spot in the NFL. The LA Rams just went out and made a move for Von Miller. I think the Buccaneers, I think everyone realizes, like, even their issues, like, yeah, okay, it's the Buccaneers, it's Tom Brady, they're going to be there. You have other really good teams in this conference. And your best player, one of the best quarterbacks in the league, is going to miss at least one game. I mean, again, I don't know exactly, how long this will take. And again, pending a potential suspension or whatever, you can miss multiple games out of this. And guess what? That's enough to just sink their season because, I mean, I think their only chance of getting to a Super Bowl is if they're at home. And even then, obviously, as we saw last year, it didn't really matter much. So I don't think that they can go on the road and beat 4 really good NFC teams. No, I don't think so. Like, they're playing good, but I don't think they're playing that well. So this could tank the Packers season. And you know what? It might end up being the lasting memory that Packers fans have of Aaron Rodgers as their quarterback is, well,
the final memory of Brett Favre was throwing an interception in the overtime of the 2007 NFC Championship game. And as crazy as he was, and I think Rodgers is a better quarterback and actually even a better leader than Favre. It's not, comparing, Patton and MacArthur, but in context, I think he's still a better leader than Favre. Favre was the ultimate diva, selfish, all that stuff. I mean, the guy was dressing in a different locker room than everyone else. So, but that was, but at least Brett Favre, they somehow got to the NFC Championship game. Now, if Rodgers gets suspended for 4 games and they go 1-3 and end up going 11-6 instead of 13-4, and they do get a home game because they win the division, but they've got to win 2 road games after that to get to the Super Bowl, and they don't pull it off. Well, you can look back and say, well, they blew an opportunity to be the 1 seed and be the only team to get a bye in their conference because he decided that he was immunized and that was going to be enough, even though the league said, no, it's not enough. You're not vaccinated. So if you contract COVID, you're going to have to sit out for 10 days. Like, if he'd been vaccinated, there could have been a chance to even play Sunday.
Oh, sure. There's 5 days and two negative tests, 24 hours apart from each other. That's it.
Ian, we're both pretty cynical, right?
Yeah.
Do you think if he tested positive and he was vaccinated that the league somehow would cover this up?
Oh, sure.
I mean, the league would say, look, first of all, Fox would be like, we spend $2 billion a year on TV rights. This is our marquee game of the year. That's all we've heard about for the last month.
I don't think fans would ultimately care.
go on. No, that's
Yeah,
not,
it's like,
most fans still don't care. They
yeah,
want
they
to
were
see
like, oh,
Rodgers,
okay.
Mahomes.
They just want
Yeah,
to hear that he passed his subsequent 2 tests. They don't really
yeah, they
care
don't
about.
care.
Yeah, they're like,
No,
okay, all right. Well, I'm not going to question it because hey, we're going to get Rodgers, Mahomes on Sunday, and but in this case, there's nothing they can do about it. There's
no,
nothing that
no.
they
It's
can do.
too.
And
Yeah.
look, if I'm the NFL, I'm pissed too. I'm pissed too
Oh yeah.
because again,
Yeah.
this is a blatant just disregard for not only the rules but just it's not just him putting, we're not going to sit there and pretend like if anyone's seen the movie Outbreak,
Yeah.
how all you breathe on someone, you're going to die in like 2 hours. No, that's not
No.
what we're suggesting. But there's enough inherent risk in his actions that it's enough to make you wonder, like, yeah, most everyone's selfish in some way, and there's certain levels of selfishness that you need to be able to have success or whatever. But this is a different level of selfishness. This is a
Yep.
selfishness with a disregard for others' potential outcome. When you can just take a very simple step or very simple actions to avoid this, and that's the biggest issue, and that's where you sit there and say, oh, this isn't just a guy, following his beliefs. This is a guy who kind of manipulated the system, acted
Hmm.
arrogant, sort of like what he does in his press conferences. I mean, it shouldn't shock
Sure.
anyone that he's showing arrogance in a situation like this. But now it's not just a quirky little haha. He said this thing about Mike McCarthy, or he had this very passive aggressive comment about Buchenhurst or whatever, and like now it's completely different. So look, if he gets suspended, and quite frankly, I think he deserves it based on what
I
we've.
do too. I have no
Yeah,
problem with that. No,
like
I mean, people would probably expect me to push back. I'm really pissed. I'll be honest, as a human being, as someone who likes the guy,
yeah.
I'm really pissed because this is how do you possibly even defend it?
Yeah,
Like if you could, how do you defend this? And again, I've said it before, and it's those guys that are anti-vaxxers, whether it be Cole Beasley, DeAndre Hopkins, I respect them more. At least they said it. Like I can disagree with them and think they're crazy, but at least they're out there and then they're following the rules by wearing masks and doing all of those things. This guy wanted to have it both ways, and the only thing that I'm sure, again, we're both very cynical, that Brian Gutekunst is probably, I wouldn't say laughing in the situation because he wants to see his team do well, but he's saying, man, if Jordan Love is good on Sunday, plays
yeah.
well and they beat
Mhm.
Kansas City, then they're moving on from Aaron Rodgers at the end of the year because he is a pain in the butt to deal with. So yeah, we'll move on and
Well,
we'll get
well,
whatever
I mean,
first and a player or whatever. And if Jordan Love isn't good, then he's not the guy. And again, it's not one game's not going to turn. I mean, the dude from the Jets threw for 400 yards, Mike
yeah.
White. I don't think the Jets think he's going to
Well,
supplant
Matt
Zach
Flynn,
Wilson.
we all remember Matt Flynn.
Made $30 million off of that one game.
Yep.
Touchdown passes against the Lions. Yeah. So, but if Jordan Love balls out and they somehow win, and look, they can still win. I mean, Kansas City has its own issues, and the
Yeah,
Packers
like
still have
yeah.
they could pull this off. I don't think it's. I mean, the line went from a pick to 7, which is it's only going to move that much for 3 players in the entire league: Brady, Rodgers, and Mahomes. If they're out of a game, the line will move 7 points. As great as Derrick Henry is, the Tennessee line won't move that much because he's a running back.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. But maybe they come out, they play, they win, and everyone's like, okay, we got to finish the season, and Rodgers still gives them the best chance to win a Super Bowl. But if he gets suspended, I'm not gonna push back. I mean, what he did. This is so much more than anything else that guys get suspended for because you're taking other people's lives
within the league too. Within the
league. Yeah, I mean, this is look what Henry Ruggs did. I mean, I don't even want to discuss that. That's just almost talk about something that makes me want to puke. But in terms of within the league, yeah, exactly. This is terrible. This is absolutely terrible. And again, I maybe because I've been at press conferences and covered teams. I mean, if I was one of those guys or women that cover the Packers and sat within 6 feet of him for 45 minutes while he's pontificating about Lord knows what, and maybe he exposed you to this virus, I'd be like, hey, I got an issue with you. I don't care how much money you make and how great a quarterback you are and all that fun stuff. Person to person, you put me at risk.
Yeah.
I'm mad.
Yeah, no, and you'd have the right to be because we've seen players across the league and people across the league that, again, chose not to get vaccinated. But, the NFL decided not to go with a mandate, and they just said, okay, well, if you decide not to do this, you have to follow these protocols that
Right.
last year led to, a very successful season considering the
Yeah.
circumstances. And we see players across the league, executives and personnel across the league, reporters, whoever, take these steps. But yet, one of your faces of the league decides that he's too good for that,
Mhm.
and that's such a huge, like, not only just slapping. I mean, fans, if again, unless you're, like you said, a really diehard Packers fan who is obviously going to, it's going to take a lot for you to turn your nose to Aaron Rodgers. I mean, as a fan, I mean, you feel, I would say, betrayed in a sense.
Yep.
Maybe not. I
Good
don't want to
good
get,
choice of words.
yeah, not too
No,
overly
that's a good
dramatic
one.
here, but you feel betrayed because it's like, imagine, imagine if you're a fan, you got tickets to this game. You're like, oh man, I'm going to see Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes. Well,
Mhm.
yeah, and injuries happen. You understand the risk that not every player is guaranteed to play. I mean, we go through this in the NBA all the time. What happens when you rest players? But this is, again, this is action. This is like, what was that Yankees pick? Kevin Brown. Remember when he punched the wall and
Oh,
broke
right,
his
yeah.
hand and was
Yep.
like, not only and at least in his case, his broken hand wasn't contagious, you know.
Right,
Like
exactly.
in this case, like it should. I don't know. To me, it's a very, not only is it disrespectful to not only the players, personnel, and the fans, but to, I mean, to the players and the personnel, but to the fans as well. And not only, go back to him lying, everything about this. It's just a bad situation. If you're an Aaron Rodgers fan, I mean, you have to, like you are. You have to wake up today and just scratch your head and be like, "What are you doing? Like, what? How am I?
Right.
How can I defend this? I mean, what you did, you got to take your lumps for it. And if a suspension comes down, well, so be it. And
So be it. So be
and
it.
yeah,
To be honest with you, I will, watch the games because he'll come back at some point, and I'd love to see the guy win a second Super Bowl. But my opinion of him has gone down a few rungs after the disclosure of this story, and he's almost 38 years old,
yeah,
right? So it's not like he's 22 and just out of college. First of all, he's at a Halloween party dressed as John Wick. I'm of always of the belief that once you get out of your college years, don't dress up at a Halloween party. Don't go to a Halloween party. Halloween is
normal
for
days
kids.
you can dress up in costume or whatever, but at least on
Well, yeah,
Halloween.
not on Halloween. Yeah, don't dress up in costumes. I mean, just like that part of it, is almost like, okay, again, is quirkiness, which I kind of like, but also, as you said, you nailed it here, Ian. That is what leads him to thinking that he's the smartest guy. Now, the organization, his teammates, his coaches, the media, and again, I keep bringing them up into this because they were next to the guy for
Oh,
45
sure.
minutes multiple times. They all deserve an apology. There's no way in hell he'll apologize to them. He'll go on Pat McAfee next Tuesday, and it's a great podcast that they have every week. But he'll be there with his hair slicked back and his beard growing, and he'll be sipping scotch, and he'll be, he'll probably make light of this.
I was gonna say, he'll look unbathen for the last week.
I'm convinced he doesn't shower. I mean, I just, you said it. We said it a few weeks ago. I wouldn't be surprised if he lives out of a van. I mean, he was talking about what he did this weekend. It was like cleaning up his house. Like, if I made as much money as him, I'm not cleaning anything. I'm not calling maid.
Yeah,
I have a maid servant, like a live-in maid, if that's the case. But yeah,
I'd be fanned over with grapes and fed wine. Like, trust me, like that.
Anyway,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah,
And we don't make
it's just
money.
it's a little bit out of camera, but you can't see my hammock and
Yeah.
my grapevine that's right behind me. So
Absolutely. You wear tunis and a tusk and everything else, and the grape leaves on top of your hair like the Roman Empire.
of course.
Yeah.
Well, that's just how I see
Emperors,
myself,
not
Sean.
empire. Emperors. Well, I am actually Roman, so I can
No,
be
there you
emperor.
go.
Why not?
Italian,
I'm a
yeah,
direct
okay.
descendant of Julius Caesar. Yeah, actually, all my ancestors were from Rome, so I'm
There you go.
Roman.
There
I'm arrogant as anyone else.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is just pissed me off, and it's not just to watch the games. It's just like as a human being, looking at this guy as like one of the three faces of the league, and he's a damn fool.
Yeah.
Just a damn fool.
It's disappointing. It's just very
It is.
disappointing,
But
and
not shocking. It's like if there was one guy that was going to try to pull this off, it's him.
yeah, well, I think in hindsight, it's not shocked because, like, at first I was kind of shocked, and then again, we start really, going back to some of the things we said. You learn a little bit about his significant other, and you're like, Oh, okay.
boy.
All right. This actually
Yeah.
isn't that
Oh, shit.
shocking. Because like I
Oh,
said,
no.
if you were going to ask the question a couple days ago, like, which quarterback is going to, believe in some alternative, reality, most people I would imagine would say, oh, easily Brady.
Brady,
It's
right.
obviously Brady. When you actually dive into it, he's probably the least likely to do that because of, like we mentioned, the medical professionals in his family, and of course, the stuff that his mother has gone through recently. Like, if
Right.
anyone believes in the medical industry, it's
Yeah,
probably Tom.
exactly.
So,
Yeah.
like, what were we thinking? Like, man, he's probably the least likely. So shouldn't surprise people that he was vaccinated and got his teammates in line
And
if they needed
he's
it.
such
So
a psycho about winning too that it's like, okay, let's all get vaccinated. It's going to help us win.
yeah,
So now they're not going to get guys. And look, that someone can still get COVID that's vaccinated, but the chance of them coming back for that game is
and,
there is
and
a
just
chance.
not being
There's no
affected
chance
as
Aaron
yeah.
Rodgers can come back. He's going to be sitting in his trailer for the next
Mhm.
10 days or whatever the hell he lives, and has to isolate from everyone else. Maybe Shailene Woodley can come over and drop off some, clay that he can eat, or some of her homemade toothpaste,
Yeah.
or some of her medicine that she makes, or the spring water that she gets from all over the world, because that's what most normal people do.
Yeah, what's that, alkaline water or something? Put some batter,
Yes.
just
Yeah.
do that. So silver alkaline water. That's old wives
Where's
too.
the days of the quarterback being like hungover,
Yeah,
going
I
into
know.
the next game?
Like
Kenny Stabler,
like
going
smoking
over to the
cigarettes and,
sideline,
and
smoking
drinking
cigarettes. Like that.
whiskey.
Oh man, that was the best. I mean, Kenny Stabler, when he'd go to the sideline, they had a water bottle, and I'm convinced there was like probably scotch or something in there. Having a cigarette at halftime, and you see the pictures of Kenny Stabler when he was 35 compared to what Brady looks like at 44. Brady looked like a kid.
Yeah.
But those were the fun days, right? When the quarterback was out there drunk. Now these guys are so hypersensitive about their bodies, which is good. But then it goes overboard, doesn't it, Ian? Because
Yeah.
now they're so into it that they think they have all the answers. If you ever run into, like I've dealt with quarterbacks, guys that played college quarterback, like they had tryouts in
Mhm.
the NFL. Quarterbacks are some of the most insufferable people that you can deal with. That's part of the position.
Yeah,
Like, to be a
you have to,
quarterback, you
yeah.
kind of have to be an alpha, like an alpha's alpha. So I'll take this guy who generally thinks he's the greatest quarterback ever. I mean, put that on steroids as far as being a know-it-all or an
Yeah.
alpha, or just like my poop is ice cream. It just so take it to the next level. And these are nice people that I've dealt with, but they command themselves a certain way because they're quarterbacks. It's
Well,
like
and
I had
like you said, I mean, that's kind of an inherent trait that you
you
need
kind of
to.
want it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, you have to. You can't be just like this passive. Well, I don't want to say you can't
No.
be a passive aggressive guy because that's exactly what
Oh no, he's good at
Aaron
that.
Rodgers
Yeah.
is. But you know what I mean, like passive, laid back. Like you can't. Your natural personality can't be that because as a quarterback you have to take lead and take charge in many
Right.
situations, and if you don't have that, you're not going to make it too far up the rung in levels of of play and all that stuff. So, um, not surprisingly, this conversation took up the majority of the show today. I do want to end it by mentioning and obviously updating because not only did this Aaron Rodgers stuff kind of the details came out after the show yesterday, we learned a lot more about the whole Henry Ruggs situation, and both of us said yesterday that no matter the situation, no matter how rich or poor you are, this was an irresponsible well, come to find out, I mean, the details of this are just it's sickening. It makes my stomach turn. Um, this goes beyond just a simple mistake. Like, you like I'm not going to downplay drunk driving. I'm not going to do that. I mean, I think we've all known plenty of people that have been
Sure.
arrested for DUI. This is, there should be another term for this. The driving
Hmm.
156 miles an hour, and thank God for car computers to be able to know this type of stuff because this is how we know, these numbers and speed limits and all that. To hit the car going, well, I think it was 130 something. Like I've once in my entire life, I remember it's actually coincidentally the car that I own now, but back in 2003, 2004, I had this Infiniti where I was driving up 93/95. We all know what we're doing. 128, 93, 95, that
Yep.
area. We all know. Going up just north, I think I was heading to Peabody. And I was like, you know what? It's like 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to open this up. I've never driven fast. So I think I got up to like 110 miles an hour. Okay.
Mhm.
And the amount of anxiety and just absolute like nerves that were going through my body just going that fast on an open highway, like what, a
Right.
3-lane highway with no other cars on the road? Like that was nuts. Now, to add an additional 40 some odd miles an hour to that through a residential, somewhat populated area, regardless of what kind. I mean, again, this is Las Vegas we're talking about, or right on the outskirts. 3:30 in the morning doesn't mean anything. It's
No.
just it's just it's sickening that for whatever reason. And we talked about the irresponsibility of not calling Uber, taxi, or in this case, the league's free ride service. But it just everything else on top of that, twice the legal limit, drinking limit. Which again, how do you get how do you get that drunk and then still decide that or make the decision that it's a good idea to get behind the wheel is beyond me.
Mhm.
Um, and just the utter disregard for just life around him. Like I hope he gets the maximum. Like honestly, I have
Oh,
no like
absolutely.
I hope we talked about it yesterday. The I think the max he can technically receive is like 26 years. However, for the actual act of DUI with a death involved, I think it's up to 20, and I hope he gets all of it. Like I know
Absolutely.
I know some people have had the reaction, oh, he made a mistake. Well, I don't care. Like I've made mistakes. It didn't result in people dying, and it wasn't
Right.
my mistakes didn't involve such a reckless or irregard for human life. I mean, that's what it was. When you decide to drive, not not only drive drunk, but drive that fast in the area that you make the conscious decision that the end result doesn't matter. The potential loss of life, whether it was his own or someone else's, or in this case, you have a person and an animal. Like it's so utterly disappointing for anyone, let alone someone who's in a position
Mhm.
to have every advantage right now to avoid that. I mean,
Right.
every
Yep.
situation he could have gone out on the street, flagged down a limo, and they would have been like, "Hey, you're Henry Ruggs of the Raiders. Get in here. I'll give you a ride home." Like that. I mean,
Yeah.
every
And then tip
single
the driver a couple $100
yeah,
because you saved him his career
his
in turn,
life,
right?
his
Because
life.
his life
Yeah.
and this 23-year-old woman's life, I mean, who's just there at the wrong place at the wrong
Mhm.
time. And yeah, throw the entire book at this guy because this is just disgusting. And I also want to know, who was he with? I know he was with his girlfriend. Was he with teammates, friends? Like, who let this guy get behind the wheel? I mean, where was? I mean, I know Vegas has like this different set of rules. Like, if this happened at the local bar and wherever, the bartender might have said, enough is enough. Take his keys away, whatever. But again, these athletes, they feel entitled, so they're like, no,
Well,
I'm
and
not giving
he
up
was
my keys. I'm driving.
and he was reportedly, at Top Golf, which, coincidentally, I was just there a couple weeks ago,
Well,
same place, and it's a 4 level, I mean, there's dozens and dozens and dozens of areas where you hit golf balls, and there's bars on every so there was no shortage
ugh,
of alcohol flowing at that place, and then whatever happened post that, because the report was something like 18 shots there, and then they left, and then who knows what happened between then and, the 3:30 in the morning. So, yeah, it's utterly disappointing. It's nauseating. It makes my stomach turn. Um, and it's just you part of there's some people that have the inclination of feeling bad or sympathy for Ruggs, and it's just like I really don't. This has nothing to do with as sports or anything like that. I mean, it's just such a devastatingly irresponsible decision to make that I've never felt inclined to forgive someone for stuff like that.
yeah, no,
And
no, this is
yeah,
unforgivable. I'm sorry.
no.
I mean, and then the families that have within them to forgive, they're better people than I am
Oh,
because I can't
clearly.
possibly do that. I
Yeah.
mean, remember, was it 5 years ago? Dylan Roof executed 9 people at a black
Yeah.
church,
Yeah.
and many of their family members that were killed forgave him. I'm like, you're much better than I am
I
because I
could
want
never
to
do that.
strangle this person. Yeah, I would just like, I'd be the lunatic in the courtroom that, would be carried away because I went after him. I mean, there's just like, if something happens by accident, that happens. This ain't no accident. I'm sorry, 156 miles per hour with 18 shots. I mean, I could outdrink just about anyone. I was a beer drinker. I wasn't into shot. 18 shots?
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't even seem like, who the hell's serving them? That's the other thing. Like,
who enjoys
who the hell
that?
is serving?
Well,
yeah, I mean, that's just a lot of. I mean, just my wrist would start to hurt or whatever. I mean, like, but who served them? I want to know. I mean, again, I know Vegas is very lax with all this stuff because that's their industry. But let's find out who at some point said, 18 seems like a pretty good number to give a guy.
Well,
and Leah later he drives this sports car off the way into a crowded area. What possibly could go wrong here?
Well, I mean, in the area in which Topgolf is, it's right in the strip, right in the strip area. Right. It's not on the strip, but it's like right, like I could see it. So like where I was staying a couple weeks ago at the Paris, it's like you can see it from their parking garage. That's how we knew where to go. We were like, oh, look, there's Topgolf, and it's not like it's like in this secluded area. So it's like even just leaving that area and whatever it was earlier in the evening, whenever, just leaving that area as drunk as I would assume he was is an issue. So, yeah. So unfortunately, fortunately for us, there's a lot of things to talk about for this show, but unfortunately, it's the things that we have to talk about that have happened over the last several days, and I'm sure both stories will continue to evolve as we move forward. Both Henry Ruggs in one situation, and then of course the Aaron Rodgers situation. So tomorrow we will be back. It's Friday, so we're going to give our picks for the weekend. Tonight, Jets, Colts. I got the Colts winning this one. I don't know if Mike White's going to have another Hall of Fame worthy like game, but who knows? Who knows? Maybe this is the beginning. You never know. Once upon a time,
Brady, right?
Once upon a time, Mo Lewis took out Drew Bledsoe, and that's that. And the guy who replaced him is still playing right now.
Didn't Zach Wilson get taken out by a Patriot, right?
John.
See this? I'm on to
okay,
something.
all right.
Jets, the next Tom Brady.
Jets fans just perked up. So, thank you for everyone for tuning in, of course, and give us a follow on Twitter at FPC Radio Live. I'm at IGLEN31, and of course, you can find John with the fancy blue check mark at John Sapp 25, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. So have a great Thursday. Enjoy the day, and we will talk to you then.